Welcome back. Third and final segment of the show. So happy you decided to stay with me. I'm sure our guests are happy you decided to stay with us. Sean, I'm happy you decided to stay with me. Because Sean, without you, there is no show, my friend. That's all that I'm saying. Hey, we hope you enjoyed our tech news that we've been talking about during the show and different things that you may not have thought about when it comes to technology. Think about the first time when you made your first purchase online from that website. Remember the shopping cart? It's pretty cool, wasn't it? And then when you got your mobile device, you're able to do some shopping from your smartphone. What has that done to the shopping cart? Did video kill the radio star? Or did smartphones and mobile shopping kill the shopping cart? My next guest is going to help us to answer that question. His CEO of his company wrote a book, and that's Stephen Schambach of NewStore, CEO of NewStore. He wrote a book. It's entitled Makeover, How Mobile Flipped the Shopping Cart and What to Do About It. So we decided to reach out to my good old friend, Phil Granof from NewStore. We had Phil on last year, and Phil gave us some good advice of when it comes to the shopping, mobile security, and all these things that companies can do. So we decided to invite Phil back to talk about this book and all the juicy things that's in there. And joining me right now to discuss this in depth and a lot better than I can discuss it, we're talking about the Chief Marketing Officer at NewStore, Phil Granof. He joins me back again. Phil, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Great. Glad to be back. Good to see you.
Hey, great to have you, my friend. And when I was looking over this book, it kind of took me back to like the 80s. You remember when the video was video killed the radio star? Are we seeing mobile kind of killing the shopping cart? What are we seeing, my friend?
That's a really nice parallel. That's pretty much what's going on. So the introduction of mobile devices has completely, as we've said, flipped the shopping cart. The way that people shop and buy and investigate is very, very different than how it was, back when radio was killing the video god. The store used to be the primary source of information about product and where you'd go to learn about things. Now it's primarily the mobile phone. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, or 2012, 14% of people would go into a store having looked at their mobile phone. And as of last year, it was 2/3 of people are going into a store with having already looked up information on their mobile phone. So things have completely changed, and how we research and buy now has been fundamentally altered by this wonderful device here, the mobile phone.
That is so true. And looking at the book that your CEO put out, Stefan Schambach, when he talked about Makeover, how mobile flipped the shopping cart, and what to do about it. And what I like about this book right here, Phil, is that he really tells companies out there what they can do about it. And looking at the first chapter of the book, it really talked about customer relationship. Why is that so important? And how does the book kind of navigate us through that?
So the customer relationship is the primary means of creating value between the consumer and the retail or the brand. And how that's changed has been dramatic over the last 10 years. And the impact has been huge. I mean, you could say very simply that retail is in crisis. And it's in crisis because retailers, brick and mortar retailers, are still struggling to figure out how to compete in the internet age. And it sounds silly to even call it the internet age because as consumers, of course, we're living in it. But this is a serious change for retailers who are stuck in a different world. They've seen over the last 5 years almost 60% decline in foot traffic, which is remarkable. And this year, I guess a year ago in the same time period, there were 1,100 store closings throughout the U.S. That's now at 2,800. So if you think about what's going on there, it's a couple of things. Consumers are looking for something different out of the store environment, and who the consumer is now is very different. Millennials are becoming a huge part of the purchasing power that fuels growth in retail, and about 2/3 of them, they prefer to do their shopping on the smartphone. So the consumer is in a very, very different mindset right now, and who the consumer is different, and retail itself is in a world of hurt.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when we kind of look at some of the, I guess, the three long lasting the vectors that are out there, and one of the ones that has to kind of be at the forefront is that experience. How important is experience when it comes to that, learning from experience and just and not repeating the mistakes of the past?
So, do you mean experience from the standpoint of the consumer, or the experience that brick and mortar companies are learning from?
Let's talk about the brick and mortar companies, because sometimes brick and mortar companies, they're kind of resistant, right? So what can they learn in that experience?
So I think they need to take a long perspective of what's made them successful in the past and how that is now translated to a world that is obsessed with mobile devices. A physical store has always been a source of experience. It was a place to not only touch and try products, but in some cases it was the proxy for the town square. So people go to stores for an experience and for learning. So now in a world where there are mobile devices, how does that experience change? Is there the same burden on a physical store for experience that there was prior to it? So what retailers need to understand is that their store, which has always been a place for experience, now has more pressure for something that is new, and I would say a new kind of experience. So the successful retailers are not going to ignore these devices. What they're going to do is they're going to take a harder look at what happens inside their retail environment and think about, how do we create new and novel experiences for our consumer? Because it's no longer just a place to hold inventory. And if you think about even the word store, what does it actually mean? It means a place to keep things. The meaning of store is going to utterly change. It's going to be a place to do things.
Wow, that is so true. And I'm so glad in the book that there's a chapter that deals with store relationships, because, contrary to popular belief, stores are not dead. They're still around, and I'm glad that there's a chapter in the book that kind of deals with that, and also that takes us to associate relationship, because in the book it kind of talks about that too. And please give us a rundown of what we'll find out in that chapter.
Sure. So as you know, the book is called Makeover and What to Do About It. So there are 9 chapters and 9 areas that we go into detail on in the book. And one of them is about the makeover that needs to happen with the store associate. And it's really around how retailers need to think about revamping the relationship that consumers have with their associates. It needs to be something much closer. It needs to be something in which the store associate is equipped at the very minimum with the same tools that consumers are coming into their stores with, and that's a mobile phone. So 90% of shoppers will spend more when they're helped by a knowledgeable sales associate. But what makes us all knowledgeable now? It's not necessarily a little black book that has the details of a consumer, although some store associates have that also. It's the ability to have access to real-time inventory, what promotions are going on, and what that consumer wants to have exactly, that is tailored to that person. But yet right now, only 18% of associates have access to inventory in any kind of mobile device. This needs to be 100%. So the makeover that needs to happen in the store with the associate is about equipping them with the technology that consumers have already at their fingertips.
And that makes a lot of sense, because now, even when you go to restaurants now, even though restaurants are, I guess they do kind of mobile selling certain things, their merchandise and everything. Even when you go to restaurants now, the waiters or waitresses, they have in their hand, they have a device in their hand, and they can let you know right then and there, okay, this, and that. And what's been kind of the feedback with some companies out there? Are they kind of resistant to do this, or are they finally seeing now, in order for us to be relevant, this is something we have to do when it comes to retailers?
Good question. There's a chapter called on the corporate makeover. That is how corporations need to rethink their whole value proposition. And part of that is not just what they're offering in the store experience, but how they organize themselves. So traditionally, corporations or retailers divide themselves up into silos. There's the e-com division and there's the store division. And from a consumer standpoint, there's no division at all. They just go to one brand entirely. So what retailers are now beginning to understand and brands are beginning to understand is that the makeover that needs to occur inside is about breaking down silos. So where we see resistance to adopting this, it's in the older line organizations that have very entrenched silos. And usually what it requires is someone new to come in and say, hey, you know what? Let's take a step back and take a look at this from the consumer's perspective. Is there really a value to having separate channels when the consumer is just simply having one brand? And going back to your restaurant example, I really love it because, you could certainly eat at home or you can certainly buy groceries from a grocery store, but what's the reason you go to the store or go to the restaurant? You go for an experience. And it's something that can be had there that you can't really have, by just cooking at home or by, going to a vending machine, say. So your store associate is a bit like that great waiter who becomes an advocate for the brand and a primary vehicle for creating an experience for the consumer. So it's not just, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You're right on the right track. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that, my friend.
I think one reason consumers are different than they are now has to do with a brand that we're all very aware of, and that is Amazon. Amazon is truly setting the expectations for all of retail. I'm sure you're aware of, Amazon's purchase of Whole Foods.
Absolutely.
I think they're now I think Amazon probably should change their name to Whole Economy at this point. But they now have access to, I think, 100 million consumers that will have the ability to get Prime delivery like that. Mm-hmm. So Amazon is setting the bar for all of retailers. And their ability to deliver, their ability to provide convenience, these are the things that are hallmarks of Amazon. But where's the value that they can provide in the experience? It's only around the convenience. And the advantages that stores have lie in two things: their physical locations and their store associates that can create an experience for consumers. And no matter how efficient and how fast Amazon gets, this will be something that physical environments will always have over Amazon.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. That is so true. And Amazon can do all this, all these big companies can do all these different things. But if they're not loyal to their customers, it really means nothing. And in the book, it kind of talked about the loyalty relationship. And please share something on that, please.
Yeah, I'd like our audience to think a little bit differently about loyalty. In the old days, for the old store, not the new store, loyalty was basically about points, collecting points. Today, millennials especially, they're not interested in collecting points. They're interested in collecting experiences. So you can think now of apps that are on the mobile phones of consumers as the new loyalty card. In fact, they're really the tool of choice for the most engaged sort of customer. So if you think about your own experience online, you probably begin on the web. And as you get familiar or comfortable or you begin to have affinity for a brand, you'll likely download their app. Now within that app, there'll be many more experiences that you could have there that you never were able to have in just a pure brick and mortar experience. And you bring that into a physical environment, there's approximately 80% of people who go into a store that actually have their phone with them at the same time. Think about the interaction effect that you can have with a phone in store. So if you have a promotion, say that are for people of my age, 25 years old, right? And I'm in, say, a Walmart or I'm in, say, Dick's Sporting Goods, I could target something specifically for someone my age in the store in a certain aisle. And that can only happen because the mobile device is in my pocket. So it's a whole different type of store experience that can be had once you think about the mobile store as a whole, that is mobile technology embedded into a physical store.
And that kind of ties in great to the technology relationships that company has to have too, because I can't tell you, I'm in a store, have my smartphone, and something will pop up like from that store, and I'm like, it's magic, but it's really not magic. It's technology. Please, how does that chapter kind of explain that, what we're seeing in the technological relationships now the companies have to have?
So the technology makeover is one that many companies struggle with, especially when they think of it from a bottoms-up approach. That is, okay, we have to have geolocation, we have to have iBeacons, we have to have mobile point of sale and checkout. And I would say that all has to be done, but the secret to success is twofold. You have to find the right kind of chief technology officer who's willing to think about the brand experience, and then you have to spend a lot of time in the Apple Store. And the reason why I say that is the NewStore, the store that is going to be the most satisfying for tomorrow's consumer, is going to run a lot like Apple on steroids. If you go into the Apple Store, can you find a cash register? No. Can you check yourself out? Absolutely. Do you have a great relationship with the Genius Bar or those folks running around in the t-shirts? Absolutely. And if you take a look at the Apple Store at lunchtime versus the Microsoft Store at lunchtime, one looks like a ghost town and one looks like Grand Central Station. And the reason why is that Apple has figured out how to have a seamless, frictionless experience within the store that is not only wonderful to go and be part of, but actually reflects the abilities that can be had on the device too. So the store, in some ways, is a reflection of how they approach technology in general. And that's really the lesson for brands and retailers as they think about their own technology stack, how to be more like Apple in that regard.
And you know what, Phil, I think you and I might have talked about this a little bit last time we had a discussion, just the way technology is today. And we're having this discussion, everything that can happen now because of the technological age in which we live in. It's mind-boggling. It's like you have to hold on to the roller coaster so you won't fall off because all the different things changing and the different trends out there. But I think this book is amazing, and it really can help not only consumers understand things, but also ones in business on what they need to do in order to stay relevant. And I know you guys touch on data relationships, fulfillment relationships, and brand relationships. How important is brand relationships?
Now, you're talking to a chief marketing officer, so there's a little bit of bias here. So I'll say that as my caveat.
Absolutely.
I actually think it's perhaps the most important aspect of all the book is about. I'm sure the author, Stefan, my boss, who's going to hear this, will put this in my performance review. But eventually, technology is becoming so powerful that it tends to disappear. And what always remains, is the memory of your experience with the retailer, which by any other name is the brand. So the brand relationship makeover is about how should retailers think about what the brand means to consumers and how it should change versus where it has been in the past. The secret here is that the brand has always been owned by the consumer. And we've been giving lip service to it for many years because it was always good to say positive things about the consumer. But now, when you in fact have every consumer with one of these in their hands, they truly are in charge of what the brand means. They can configure their experience to meet exactly their needs. So the lesson to retailers is that your brand is not yours. Your brand is owned by your consumers. And listen to them carefully. Because even as technology advances at the pace that you and I are referring to, which is blinding, what will remain true is that we're going to be selling to human beings who are going to have memory about the experiences and relationships they establish with those brands.
And I'm waiting for the day, Phil, when AI start ordering stuff and charging us, charging our credit cards. That's what I'm out of here, man. I'm going to Mars, man. I'm done. I'm done with Earth. No, I'm just joking. But you know, and we see in this book right here on really helping us to see what to do about it when it comes to this makeover. You know, I think it's spot on. Now, is there anything else in the book you'd like to articulate out there to the audience that we might not have had a chance to discuss thus far?
I think there are I'll end on a last point, which is in retail, they're going to be big losers and they're going to be big winners. And what defines a big loser from a big winner are the ones that are able to get mobile right. When they get mobile right, that means that they're going to be taking the right perspective about how consumers want to interact with their brand that is on their terms. We actually refer to it as streaming retail, which is the idea, well, it's a bit borrowed from Netflix, right? Which is you can begin to pluck a shopping experience out of the air at any time, anywhere you are. So in effect, your brands are streaming around you all the time. And it's your choice as to when you want to interact with them. That's ultimately what the mobile makeover is about. We're entering the world of streaming retail which will satisfy your needs at the moment you have them in the context that the needs arise. So I guess the thing that I would leave you with most is mobile going to happen to you or for you? And the answer to that, not to promote it too much, Paul, but it's in this book, Makeover, which is a great read, and I know people are going to enjoy it in and outside of business.
Absolutely. We got an image right here too, so we'll definitely promote it together right here by Stefan Schambach, who's the CEO, your boss over there, over at NewStore, Makeover, how mobile flipped the shopping cart and what to do about it. Now, how can ones get their hands on this book, Phil?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Of course, I would have put my talking point in there anyway. Paul, again, as the CMO, of course, it can be found in all the normal places. It's on Amazon, it's on iTunes, it's on Kindle. It can be had in both hard copy and on electronic copy as well. And while it may sound ironic that a company devoted to creating seamless mobile experiences has actually produced a physical book, but it is very mobile and portable, and you can bring it onto a flight, and you'll get to keep it open when you land and when you take off, unlike all the other devices. So it has some advantages there. See, physical has still got a place in the world.
That is so awesome. And if you're looking for a good narration voice to narrate it, I can put on my King's English voice and I can narrate it for him too. That's what I can do.
Now we're talking, Paul. All right.
Phil, great catching up with you, my friend. Looking forward to having you back on again, and love our discussions, and much success over at NewStore. And you take care of yourself, my friend.
It was a pleasure, Paul. Thanks again.
That was Phil Granof, folks, from NewStore, Chief Marketing Officer. Love catching up with Phil, and love the book that Stefan wrote too, Makeover. Make sure you get a copy of it. I have it right here. I want to hold it up, but fingers don't work that good. It would be a catastrophe if I held it up. That's all that I'm saying. But a great read. Definitely check it out. Well, hey, this is the end of our show. I'm so happy you decided to tune in and watch and listen to all the great things that you're doing. Remember, connect with me, PaulAmadeusLane.com. That's PaulAmadeusLane.com. In a few weeks, we will be live at Comic-Con 2017 in San Diego. Don't miss our coverage and have a blast. But next week, talk about some more tech that's on your mind. Take care, folks. Talk to you soon.